Hi everybody, welcome to the Nick the Brave Chemo Kitties and Canines podcast. I'm your host, Nick the Brave. As someone battling cancer, I know how important it is to stay positive in the rough times. This is the only podcast that looks at the heroes behind the scene who help people that need it the most. Hi everybody, welcome to the Nick the Brave Chemo Kitties and Canine podcast. I'm your host, Nick the Brave, and today I have my friend Steve Sodergren. I met Steve as he worked at the Rock Chalk Roundball Classic, an event here in Lawrence that raises money for families affected by cancer. However, there are some things more special about Steve. He ran a marathon in all 50 states, and that's a total 1,310 miles. And when he ran these marathons, he was very special fans that ran with him. Kids like me, kids with cancer. Each day, Steve devotes his run to someone diagnosed with cancer or another life-threatening disease. Steve takes a photo along the route holding a sign that reads Running4 and the name of the person. I am lucky to have my name on one of his signs. He posts the photo and a message of encouragement on his Running4 Facebook page. An initiative he began in 2014 to raise $26,200 for cancer charities, or $1,000 for each of the miles that makes up a marathon. In the time it took him to run a marathon in 50 states. Welcome, Steve, to my podcast.
Hi, Nick. First of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me. It is such an honor to be on here with you because you are one of my many heroes, and I really appreciate being asked to be part of your podcast, Nick the Brave.
Oh, okay. My first question is, this podcast is about people who help others. You have many things going on in your life. How do you describe to help other people as you do all your jobs you do?
Well, as you mentioned, Nick, I love running. So that has manifested itself in many ways. You mentioned that I have an initiative on Facebook called Running4, and I started that 5 years ago. I was motivated by a young girl who lives down the street from me named Morgan. And she was a schoolmate of my daughter, and Morgan was fighting cancer at the time. And so in the fall of 2014, I was running past Morgan's house, and she was in the final weeks of her life. So it was at that moment that I had decided I wanted to use my running as a platform, as you mentioned, to raise money for cancer research. You know, that was after I had already run 31 marathons, and I didn't really know why. And I think the lesson that I would share with people is sometimes we do things without really realizing why. And it's a matter of finding that reason. So I'm kind of a slow learner. It took me about 10 years to figure out why I was running all those marathons. But anyway, I started that and I became a St. Jude hero runner. They call us the heroes, but to me, it's actually the kids who are the heroes. And so I became a St. Jude Hero fundraiser 5 years ago, and since that time, people have generously donated over $210,000 to the St. Jude Hospital in Memphis that treats young children with cancer. And then another place you mentioned that we met through the Roundball Classic. You were a beneficiary here in this past summer in 2019, and the Roundball Classic, as you know, raises money for families who are dealing with cancer, such as yours. And So that's been a big honor of mine to serve with the Round Ball Classic as a volunteer since 2016. And then I guess another place I would mention it would be I started running with the women inmates at the Topeka Correctional Facility here in my hometown of Topeka. And we have a running club there. And I run every Sunday morning with the ladies over in the correctional facility inside the walls of the prison. And in the summertime, I run on Tuesdays as well. And I've seen how running can impact people in a positive way. I know it's done a lot for me personally. And so these ladies who are incarcerated at the Topeka Correctional Facility, we're trying to give them some ways to cope with the stresses of life and to find ways to a positive outlet for them, because many of them will be, they'll be released from prison in the coming years. And so we hope that they can overcome the problems that cause them to get into trouble. And in some way they can use running to help them do that. So that's another way that I've used running as a way to hopefully make a positive change in our world. And I would say that's pretty much, for me, the main outlets for me of how I've used what I do.
You work with a lot of different types of people. However, sometimes there are people who aren't positive. What do you do to stay positive with the negative people that might be out there?
I think we all go through times when we're maybe not looking at the world as positively as we should, but I think about people like you, Nick, who, despite all the challenges that you faced in your young life, you always find a way to be positive. And so I guess when I run into people who are maybe not having a good day and they're just struggling with something, I always try to remember that we need to always view each other with grace and be patient with each other, because, again, not everybody is always having a good day. So, whether it be a student in one of my classes or somebody I see at the store, if I see somebody who's having a hard time, and this is easier said than done, but I always try to think about the fact that, I have those days myself. And if I'm going to expect other people to extend grace towards me, then I need to do the same for them. So you stand, Nick, as an example for me of someone who's always positive. And I know that even though you have your tough days, I try to remember, that we're not all so fortunate to always, have the best of days, and that we just need to, like I said, need to be patient with each other. That's a great question.
Not everybody has the same opinions. People are different. Do you ever think how your positivity brings people together? And if so, how do you think that works?
Well, I'm a teacher, as we mentioned earlier, and I think that we can all learn from each other. And even though, I might be an expert somewhat in what I do, I'm a math teacher, I still am surprised how often when I walk into a classroom, how I will learn from my students, because people see things in different ways. And I just think that if we're open-minded enough to listen, and that's a very hard thing to do all the time, is to listen to people. But if we take the time to listen to people, we often can learn ourselves. And so I try, and I know that we're not all perfect, but I try very hard whenever I'm in a situation with somebody to see what I can learn from that person and see if maybe I can look at the world in a different way, because we all walk a different path. I think about this a lot when I'm out running, the fact that I'm running on the ground, and you, for example, right now, you're many, many miles away from me, but you're standing on that same ground. And so I guess I just feel like we're always connected with each other, even if we're not close to one another. And, that's going on in our world right now, where we're being asked to keep our distance from each other in order to prevent the spread of this virus. But if we can just keep that connectedness with each other and just remember that we're all human. And as I said earlier, even if we're miles apart from each other, we're all walking or running on the same ground. So I try to remember that connection. And I feel that way whether I'm in the same room with somebody or whether I'm for example, speaking with you right now.
What are the positive things that you would tell everyone that you know about the people you have met in the Lawrence, Kansas City area?
Well, I think that there's good people everywhere. And I think especially in the area we live, there are so many people with big hearts who want to make a difference. So I just really think that, especially like you said, I've met so many wonderful people in this area, in my hometown of Topeka, in Lawrence. I think that there's just something special, and maybe I'm biased, but I just think in this part of the country, people tend to look out for each other a lot. And, you've been blessed to have people who want to do things to help your family. But by the same token, you're the one that inspires us. So it goes both ways. And I really think that you're right. I mean, you made an excellent point. There are so many positive people in this area who look out for one another. We're seeing that right now when we have people who are delivering much needed supplies to people who are stuck in their houses. That's a great example of that. And so I'm proud to live in this area. And I find it inspiring, inspirational when I see people doing things like that. And it motivates me to want to do the same thing, because we're all part of the human race.
What are the long-term goals in terms of what you can do for other people?
That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked that. I guess for me, what I always want to do is, I hope when my days are over on this earth that, people can look back and say that at least that guy tried to make a difference in the fight against cancer. And that's really what my major focus has become, because I've met so many great people like you and my neighbors and my own mother who've been affected by cancer. And so my long-term goal, and it's a dream that every one of us, I'm sure, has, would be to be able to see that day when it's announced that cancer has been beaten for good. Mm-hmm. So I know that's a long-term goal, and I just hope and pray that it happens sooner rather than later. But that would be the thing that I hopefully am helping with. And, it takes so many people and it takes so many dollars for that to happen. And I just truly believe that the most intelligent people in the world are working on that to beat cancer. And so I would like to think that all the generous people who have donated to my fundraising efforts would know that those dollars are getting us just one step closer to that day when we're going to say that cancer is a thing of the past, and that nobody will ever again have to hear those words, "You have cancer." So that would be my major goal in life.
So this is another question, but it's kind of for me. So, who do you think is someone positive that should be on my podcast in the future?
That is great. I don't know how much time you have, and I'll try to keep it short, Nick. But when you asked me that, I was thinking about this earlier, and I think there's 5 people who I'd like to mention. The first would be a man named Nolan Henderson. His son Grit was a round ball beneficiary the year before you. And Grit is a patient at St. Jude's in Memphis, actually. So Nolan and I have gotten to know each other through the Round Ball Classic. And Nolan started Team Grit. And Nolan, who's never been a runner, he wants to run the St. Jude Marathon in December in Memphis. And he asked me if I would help him train. And so we're going to train together and hopefully run that race together in December for his very first 26.2 mile race. So I know Nolan is very passionate about, the fight against cancer. I also think about, the people from Baby J's Legacy of Hope.
We actually tried to do Erica and her husband, but the computer wasn't working.
Okay, great. Well, then you know all about them. So I know that you'll work with them. And I know that our friend Brian Haney the other day mentioned to you a lady named Shelly Arnold, who lives here in Topeka. She's my neighbor, and you met her through the Round Ball Classic. And Shelly is very passionate about the fight against cancer. She has helped to direct the Shawnee County Relay for Life for the past several years. And she also helped set up a Relay for Life event at the Topeka Correctional Facility where I volunteer. And the inmates donated a lot of money to that. So she's another person I would highly suggest. And then I would also mention a man named Peter Halper. He has plans to run across the entire United States, and they're calling it Emery's Memory Thunder Run. It's in honor of a young girl named Emery Smith, who had a form of cancer called neuroblastoma. So Peter has the plan of running across the country. They've had to make some changes on that because of recent events, but Peter will be doing that. He'll be coming through Northeast Kansas when he runs, and so I plan to go meet with him and help him through that a little bit. And then I guess the last one I would mention is a little boy. His name is Mateo Lambert, and he's an 8-year-old from Virginia. And he has started a Facebook community called Mateo Runs, and he runs in honor of kids with cancer. And Mateo runs races where he wears a cape with the picture of a young cancer fighter, and he uses their superpowers to help him run his races. Just like I've used your superpowers when you autographed my shirt for me that I run in. So those would be some people I would suggest to you, and I can give you more details about them when we're finished here if you'd like.
Thank you for everything you've done. Continue to do for all the cancer patients. Thank you, Steve, for being on my podcast.
Well, thank you, Nick the Brave, and I just want you to know how much I think of you and how much you're a hero for me, and I just love you so much, man. You hang in there.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.